So, when we look at salt and we look at the energetics of salt, and you can shoot your questions, I'll keep them in mind. I'm in Mumbai, and salt connects us to our primal cells. What do I mean by that? When you look at macrobiotics, you're looking at salt taking you back to your primal origins. Okay, so that's what salt does for you. All right, we all need salt in our lives. So this whole theory about not having any salt at all is not correct. We need you know the phrase, take it with a grain of salt. That's literally how much salt we need. And one of the reasons why the macrobiotic tradition is so rich with its information on energetics and energy is because it questions the energy of every food group. And when we look at salt, we look at the energetics of salt and what does salt actually do for you. So let's look at the energy of salt. Okay, you know that I look at everything from a yin yang perspective, which means yin is expansive, yang is contracted, to explain it simplistically for you. So when you look at the yin aspects of salt, salt is supposed to have an earthy nature. It's supposed to bring your energy inward and downward. Okay, that's why when you soak your feet in a bucket of salted water at the end of the day, it brings your energy down. Okay, it's really recommended for people who've had stressful days. That's the yin aspect of salt. Okay, it pulls your energy in and takes it down. The other thing that it does for you is it connects you to your root chakra. Okay, it takes you, I don't know how many of you know the chakra system, but it connects you to your most basic chakra, which is the root chakra, which is connected to your survival mechanism. So anyone who's excessively indulging in salt is craving a safer foundation in life. Okay, because your root chakra is connected to the foundation in your life. Okay, so if you're overdoing the salt in your diet, you should be asking yourself the question that, listen, am I craving security? Am I craving money? Am I craving survival? Am I craving sex? Am I craving too much power? These are all root chakra issues. Okay, survival issues. That's the probably one of the reasons. That's the mental pattern of getting out of why you're addicted to salt. So why you're addicted to more salt on your table, perhaps. So you need to understand that. Okay, salt goes back to your root chakra. Okay, the other thing that it does for you on an energetic front is that it also brings your energy downward, but it also strengthens digestion. That's also a little bit of a yang element of salt, a stronger element compared to the yin element. It has the ability to work with hydrochloric acid, so secrete enough of it for digestion, and therefore on a physical level it's neutralizing the effects of any toxic food that's coming into your system. So any toxicity coming, anything that's causing acid in your system will be neutralized by salt. Just remember that salt is a team player when it comes to your plate. So salt works with protein, carbohydrates and fats together. Okay, not in isolation. So it's kind of drawing out the characters of all those food groups as well. So it's a team player, and also it works with the acid forming foods in your diet very well. So whole grain is acid forming, legumes, I'm sorry, your lentils and your beans are acid forming, non-vegetarian food is acid forming. Therefore it works really well with those acid forming foods to neutralize the toxicity of those foods. Okay, the other thing is that salt is a very aggressive and a very dominant seasoning when you look at the other seasonings. Okay, so because it's aggressive and dominant, you don't need too much of it. Okay, like I said, take it with a grain of salt is something that we've all heard of, and that's literally the phrase. You only need, in my scheme of things, you only need about 500 grams of salt a day, which is not even like half a teaspoon. And you can imagine how heavy Indians are on salt. Okay, and how much salt they use. So you have to be really careful because salt works with the kidney metabolism in your body, and kidneys control the fluid metabolism in your body. Okay, so if you're going to have too much of it, it's going to throw that kidney function off, and it's also going to throw your fluid metabolism off. Okay, that's why when you have excessive salt, you tend to get water retention because the kidneys are tight and they hold on to the water, they're not letting go. So where- you have to watch, because in macrobiotics we are very clear, okay, in the philosophy that I come from, that we are supposed to use other forms of salt in your diet. Like, we use a bit of shoyu, good quality soya sauce coming in. I'm not talking about the commercial variety, okay? We use a lot of our salt comes from the seaweeds that we eat. Of course, all this is very, like, esoteric to the Indian diet system, I agree, but we are bringing it in. Thanks, Neha. Great to see you. Yeah, we are bringing it into our diets, and we are looking at the other forms. So, barring the fact that Indians have to learn how to cut back the salt, we also have to learn how to supplement it from other foods. Okay. And I'm not talking about processed and packaged foods, because processed and packaged foods are giving you more than enough salt that you do not require in your diet. Okay. The other thing is that the thing that comes up about salt is, how much iodine am I getting? Most of the people who are deficient on iodine, so those who have underactive thyroid, always ask me this question, that listen, we need, hi Mansha, so good to see you. We need more salt, right? So can we have table salt? Well, the thing is that you don't even want too much of iodine, so I would much rather you still stick to the sea salt and the Himalayan pink salt, or you stick to a good quality rock salt, but you try and supplement the iodine from other sources. So taking spirulina, for example, in vegetarians, or adding, like I talk about, all these fantastic sea vegetables, paying a little attention there, and also perhaps using iodized sea salt and iodized rock salt. Exactly, Aishwarya. I'm just talking about the whole hypothyroid issue conundrum, that you need iodine. Prunes is a great source for vegetarians, and of course, a lot of the fish that the non-vegetarians eat has a lot of it as well. But I think one of the best things that macrobiotics has contributed to this whole theory of iodine is including a lot of sea vegetables, and spirulina has a lot of it. So if you guys can include that in your diet, that takes care of the whole iodine issue. The other thing that comes to the table of discussion is table salt. Haha, table of discussion and table salt. Table salt is actually, the extraction method of table salt strips away the trace mineral. So that's why it's not great for you. The other thing that happens is that by stripping away the trace minerals, it's really not got much of nutrient value to you. And then there are also a lot of anti-caking agents which are added to it, and that kind of, to prevent it from clumping, to extend the shelf life. So that's kind of causing, it's got additives and it's got chemicals in it which is causing the issues. That's why one is trying to tell you to move away from commercial salt, and that's why I had this fantastic discussion with one of the leading experts in the organic arena yesterday, where we discussed how we are pushing industry to change. The health revolution, and people who are addressing these issues is actually causing the bigger giants to get up and say, hey, we had rock salt sitting back in our banya stores, and we're not exploring that, or we have sea salt and we're not exploring that, and we're still making all this commercial salt which is stripped away with all its minerals, and which is stripped away, which has all these additives in it, and which is not doing anything for the audience. And now the health arena is asking us to really change things around. So now you'll see, like, a big giant like Tata Salt actually bringing in a better version of salt, or you're seeing other brands, and I don't want to take any brand names here, bringing in better versions of salt. But the truth is, in the Indian scenario, we already had a lot of it sitting in our sitting on our grocery shelves, and we were not exploring it. So you have to go back to good quality salt, because salt in the Indian framework is huge, right? Because Indians use too much of it, right? They don't even use a little bit, they use a lot of it. So you need to really question that, because that's happening. Salt is coming into your diets not only through other stuff that you're doing off the shelves, but it's coming in through the basic cooking mediums that you're using, and that really is important to change. Okay, so and what is salt? As we all know, on a physical level, it's one of the most important electrolytes in the body. It helps with the pumping actions of your cells. It helps the cells retain water. Your own solution of the body is saline, it's salty. So, you're supposed to have bits of it, okay? But you have to definitely monitor it, okay? And regarding what is the best, is Himalayan best, is sea salt best, is rock salt best, actually I would say a lot of it I take back to people is that I use a combination. So what do I do with salt? I use a bit of Himalayan, I use a bit of sea salt, and I use a bit of rock salt depending upon how I'm cooking. My salt consumption is really minimal. I almost include it only in my Indian meals, and then the rest of the meals I'm working with things like a shoyu, which is good quality soy sauce, and Ananya, I don't understand that question. You'll have to qualify it. What is your advice on confidence? Okay, is it about confidence in your life? So you can let me know that. I'll answer it. So you have to really watch it. So, like for example, bread, it has sodium in it. Anything that you take off the shelf, your biscuits, your cookies, a modicum amount of sodium goes into processed and packaged foods. So one of the things you need to do is you need to learn how to read your labels, okay? For example, there are labels which say, let me give you a small example. I walked into Nature's Basket the other day, and there was this guy selling packaged chips. They were freeze dried, and some of them were not freeze dried, they were dehydrated. Sorry, not freeze dried, they were dehydrated, and they were salty, right? Karela chips and all of this, and there's plenty of this floating around. Unfortunately, on a regulation level, we only have FSSAI, which is giving us a license to sell these products, and they are not paying attention to the nutritional label. So I asked him, how much of sodium do you have in this product? And he goes, I don't know, ma'am, we don't get it done. And I'm like, well, 99.9% of your products are salty, and obviously you're adding salt. Yes, ma'am, but I said, what salt are you using? And he says, we're using regular salt, right? But still his package was screaming healthy, 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 because it wasn't fried, it was dehydrated. So I said, how can you sell a salted product when you are not putting your sodium content on the package? Now, obviously, the guy is trying to defend himself, but really, he should be paying attention as a person who's marketing these products to the sodium content. I said, who does your testing? So he says, well, there's an in-house nutritionist who does my testing. And I said, doesn't your in-house nutritionist know that the sodium content has to be put on the package? And he says, no, ma'am, I'll look at it. So that kind of an answer is lame. It doesn't satisfy me at all, because I'm like, what if a blood pressure patient came and consumed your entire packet of Karela chips, and he doesn't know what the heck is in this packet in terms of sodium? What are you going to do? But he thinks it's healthy because you've dehydrated it. So this is precisely what I'm telling you. Similarly, for example, all these drinks that are coming to you that are salted, in my scheme of things, fermented drinks we are doing in the market, some of them have a fair amount of salt in it. But I've seen a lot of labels don't put their sodium content on the bottle. Sauerkraut, for example, okay, we the agent used to make it is salt, and whoever you're buying it from has to be able to say how much sodium there is in it, tested from a lab, and I don't see that happening. So you need to question the products you buy. If it's saying sodium free, very low sodium, reduced sodium, light in sodium, well, how much of sodium per serving is there in that processed or packaged food that you're buying? Okay, that's what you need to know. Okay, the food industry, unfortunately, I agree with you, Aishwarya, is pathetic. You need to I'm talking about the marketer, the food industry, which is like selling all these products. For God's sake, I walked into Nature's Basket. Even they didn't monitor this guy. They were just selling his products. Sorry, Nature's Basket, but I have to say this. They didn't check how much sodium there was in his products. They were selling it because it was a nice packaging and this guy was selling his stuff. But you really need to pay attention to the people who are making these products and what are the labels that you trust. Okay, when it comes to cooking your food, and I'll answer that question, Cyrus, you need to use Cyrus, right? Yeah, you need to use any medium, like I said, that works for you. Okay, you can use sea salt, you can use rock salt, you can use Himalayan pink. I use all three, but like I said, the you only need about less than half a teaspoon a day. Okay, I mean, if you look at 1,000 grams at an average, sorry, if you look at what am I saying? If you look at 1,000 milligrams at an average, that's even less. If you look, I feel that some you can work with 500 milligrams. Okay, you don't need more than that. If I've said grams before, please excuse me. It's milligrams. And in terms of iodine, you only need 150 micrograms. So you can imagine half a teaspoon of salt gets you what you need. You do not need more. Okay, so you should be really watching it when it comes to salt. If you're I've given you the energetic and reasons why you would crave more salt. I've also There are plenty of organic brands out there which are doing really well. I think it's really important, and I've started saying this in most of my workshops, that anything that you do on a regular basis in your diet, salt and oil being the two most important things in Indian diets, is very important to go back to the history of where they come from. Okay, who's the person who's selling it to you? Do you trust them? Do you read the label, or are you just using them blindly? So this goes back to using salts. And how much of it are you using in your diet every day? Okay, really important. Just remember, salts are important because they also they have magnesium, which helps your muscles. It helps brain activity, so it's really important. It helps the cells, your cells retain water, and helps with the pumping action of the cells, so that's really important. A remedy that I would like you to revisit on my posts, one of my posts is the Gomashu remedy that I talk about, which I use a lot on just a simple salad in the evening. I don't need the salt, and I use just a sprinkle of Gomashu. So you can use Gomashu. It's made with sesame seed, 18 teaspoons of sesame seed to 1 teaspoon of salt. Okay, table salt. So you should be using that. That can be used on your shaker. Not necessary to increase salt intake with Annie with low blood pressure. No, keep the salt level in your diet. Check the salt level in your diet, but not necessary to increase it. Like I said, I've given you many options on including different varieties of salt in your diet, different food groups of salt. Sea vegetables being one of them, because naturally they come from the sea, so they retain a lot of salt. In that sense, Indians can rely on spirulina. I talk and now, if you're really like nori sheets and these things are available out there, they are Japanese, I understand, and they are a little out of the way for people in Indian diets, but I think uh, bringing in spirulina shifts things a lot around. One of you said that you've started including it after I've talked about it so much, which I'm really appreciative of. If I can make that much of change in your life, that's great. Um, and just remember, someone asked the question of Epsom salt. It's totally different than table salt, okay? Its appearance is similar, but it's different. And you can drink it because it's used as a detoxing agent in many spas. But I mean, it's not used for cooking or anything. It releases magnesium, and the idea is that it kind of there is no strong evidence on Epsom salt doing more for you than just being used as a detoxifying agent sometimes. But I would say go under someone you trust. Okay. um, like I said, rock salts, Himalayan sea salts, and sea salt and Himalayan pink salt. The difference is that they have less sodium chloride. They've been stripped less and worked on less in the sense of being refined, and that they have more of the minerals, more of the trace minerals that you need. And just remember, in Indian diets, all the trace minerals are coming also largely from the salt that you're consuming. So it has to be right. And also they have different permutations and combinations. So what I tend to do is I tend to buy all three and use all three types of salt in my diet. Okay, so I'm ready here. I'm waiting for questions. Any remedy to reduce salt cravings and any brand that you recommend? So here's my answer to that. I always go with an organic brand that I trust. um, I don't want to name any particular brand, but you can trust most of the organic brands that are out there. Flip their labels, read the ingredients. And also, if you're craving salt, like I said, you have to question the emotional aspects of it and look at why you're craving it. Are you craving it because the look at the opposite end of the spectrum? I teach people like that, like, salt is can be very contracting and young food. So are you doing something like, are you doing excessive sugars which you need to cut back on to cut back your craving of salt? Or are you doing excessive amount of eggs? I don't know, which is pushing salt little high. Are you doing too much of fruits? Again, too yin, which is pushing your cravings, so you need to control that. So look at the opposite end of the spectrum and question your salt craving. So salt being extremely contracting, if you're overdoing it, then what is the opposite end of the spectrum of the food that you're eating? Are you eating a yin food, which like too much of dairy, too yin, cheese, too much yin, you'll crave salt. Okay, so look at that from that perspective. Okay. uh, yes, you need to cut down table salt, and you need to bring in the other salts, Aishwarya. And you can also supplement salt from you're reiterating what I'm saying, but yes, that's great. You got it. And any good source of spirulina. So there are two versions. There's a powdered version sold by a brand, and there is also a tablet version sold by someone out of Pondicherry. If you go online, you'll get all of these versions. There are also some pharmaceutical companies doing spirulina, but I'd check the labels because they tend to put things in it which kind of extend shelf life. So I'd look at that and bring in some really good quality spirulina. You want pure spirulina. I still think Conscious Foods has a good brand. Yeah. And how do you use it? So spirulina is something you need to build a taste for if it's powdered. 1/4 of a teaspoon in water. If you find it's too strong because it's got a very seaweedy taste to it, camouflage it in carrot juice. You build up to half a teaspoon a day. That's all you really need. And regarding your question about how do we read our food packaging, so you have to look at if it says sodium free. So if it's sodium free, then it's less than 5 milligrams of salt. If it's low sodium, then it should be less than 140 milligrams. So it really depends upon, like I've told you, you need 500 a day. So if it's saying sodium free, very low sodium, reduced sodium, you have to see how many milligrams are you consuming through your foods at home, and then how many milligrams is this product giving you via one serving. Okay, they all should specify the sodium levels per serving, so you're aware of how to buy it. That's how you should be reading your food packets. Okay, so if you see people from college, Aishwarya, with salted foods, that's not great for them. Just remember, salt will, if you have excessive salt, it will push you to crave more sugar. It will push you to crave more consumption of fructose of some sort, so fruit juices, fruits. It will push you also to perhaps crave a lot of water, which then pushes your kidney. So anyway, salt is working with the kidney metabolism. Now excessive salt is going to push your kidneys off as well. It's going to make your kidneys tight. Just remember, the kidneys house fear. So if you're someone who is insecure and has insecurities, and then the root chakra issues which come about, salt's going to definitely push that mechanism off. Okay, so consuming excessive salt is going to push the kidneys off, going to push the fear factor off in your life. Kidneys emotion is fear. Okay, so too much consumption of salt is going to make you more insecure, is going to put you in this frog in the well situation, and is never going to let you break out of it, and never going to let you go up towards your higher chakras which you need. It's going to keep you very much in your root chakra, which you don't need, because you need to start moving up. So someone asked a question on confidence, and this links it to that. So you need to give up your salt a little bit to get more confidence. Okay, I hope I've answered that right. Aishwarya says, I have seen my fear and dark circles go away as I've started using spirulina. I also have reduced sugar and salt, and I've seen it transform. That's amazing. And I hope I was helpful in that sense, Aishwarya, to you. Uh, yes, Annie, I totally agree. Sauerkraut and kimchi is the Indian way of pickling, but not really. I beg to differ a little bit, because the ancient Indian way of pickling is very different from the modern way of Indian pickling, and sauerkraut and kimchi follow a lactic acid bacteria protocol which your modern Indian pickling is not following, right? So I beg to disagree there. We're cutting the oxygen supply when we're doing sauerkraut and kimchi, which you're not doing in the modern Indian pickling system. Okay? And yes, reducing salt will improve texture, because just remember, it's holding on to all the moisture. Okay, it's going to start showing that you're swollen in the skin, and that's not what we want, right? So cutting it back is going to show less swelling. Okay. Does wheatgrass help? Yes, wheatgrass comes from the yin foods. It's a food which comes from a green, so definitely it'll help in combating your sugar, your salt craving. Okay, and it'll help in combating the sugar craving as well. Very good question, Mehek. Very good question. Uh, Pigmentation is, now that's a whole new topic, but if you're having too many sugars in your diet, sugar burns up in the form of pigmentation. So the spots that are happening on your skin are happening because of excessive sugar consumption. Now, sugar is not just white refined sugar. Sugar could be coming in from processed foods, packaged foods, alcohol. So you need to really get back to how you're eating. Okay. Thanks, Ashwarya, for joining the session. Great questions. Um the cure is you have to start reading my books, guys. Sorry. Sunflower, whirling sunflower, please, for your pigmentation. It'll give you good information. And if you're craving too much sugar because of emotional issues, which is followed, then you're in this yin yang situation. Okay. You're craving too much sugar, then you're running to salt. You're craving too much salt, then you're running to sugar. So you need to bring in whole grain, which is balanced sugars, and start first tackling the sugar in your diet. Okay, Mystic Review, I'm explaining this to you, and then then bringing the salt element under control. That's how you need to do. So if you include 1 serving to 2 servings of brown rice or millets a day in your diet, you'll see a turnaround. Okay, that's going to start balancing your sugars, and then that'll start tackling your salt. Okay, I hope that's going to be helpful. And how can we add in a salty chapati taste to Indian curry replacing salt? I'm not saying replace salt. I'm saying use the salt, but use it in a lesser quantity. I'm not saying replace it. Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be happy to answer your questions if you inbox them to me. Thank you so much, and I hope I've been able to fix this a little bit for you, and get the whole salt discussion steered in another direction.